Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Joint Staff Annual Awards Ceremony will begin shortly. Please silence any electronic devices and remove all badges. Welcome to the Joint Staff Annual Awards presentation, recognizing the Enlisted Service Member of the Year, Civilian of the Year, and Action Officer of the Year. These programs were established to foster the highest standards of professional conduct, personal integrity, and individual initiative, and highlight the sustained, outstanding achievement of all enlisted service members, civilians, and action officers assigned throughout the Joint Staff. We would like to extend a special welcome to those in attendance today and everyone watching the ceremony remotely. Our host for today's ceremony is General Mark A. Milley, 20th Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem, which will be performed by Staff Sergeant Edmund Milley, United States Army.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. The Joint Staff Annual Awards recognize those deemed to have contributed most significantly to the accomplishment of the mission of the United States Armed Forces, as well as support to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in his role of the Principal Military Advisor to the President, the National Security Council, and the Secretary of Defense. Ladies and gentlemen, General Milley.
So the auditorium looks a little empty, and obviously that's because of COVID-19. We're taking all the appropriate precautions, and so when folks come up here and speak, they take their mask off, but otherwise we keep our mask on. Everybody's at the appropriate distance, and I'm saying that for the record because I know we're being broadcast live. So there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people watching this live right now. So for the awardees, which we'll introduce in just a moment, I know from all of us, even though the audience here looks a bit thin, there's tons of people watching this on live stream. And I just want you to know from all of us how very, very proud I am and how very proud we, the Joint Staff, and more broadly the U.S. military is of each of your accomplishments, which are remarkable, which we'll find out in just a second. I also want to thank down here in the front row, or partial front row, some of our senior leaders of the Joint Staff and really of the United States military writ large. And I think, and I know that I'm somewhat biased in my view, but I happen to think that we have the finest set of senior leaders on the Joint Staff of any organization in the world, with our Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, John Hyten, all our three-star JDers, our Director of the Joint Staff, and all of the action officers and civilians and military that work on the Joint Staff. It's a remarkable group of people, from senior leader down to the lowest ranking soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guard that are working on the Joint Staff, and all the civilians with us. It's a tremendous organization, and I would tell you that the Joint Staff, and I've got, I don't know how many years now, 10 or 11 years or something like that, in D.C., and about 6 or 8 of them, I think, are working on the Joint Staff in one capacity or another. And I would tell you that the Joint Staff is an incredibly competent, capable, efficient, and effective, and very powerful organization that does tremendous work for our nation. And the awardees that we see today that we'll present here in a few minutes, they are really representative of a much broader group of people that represent extraordinary talent for our country. So I want to thank all of you for coming, and the senior leaders as well. And I also want to point out a particular senior leader, if you'll indulge me for a moment, and that's the senior advisor to the chairman, senior enlisted advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Air Force Chief Master Sergeant, or I call him Sergeant Major because I'm in the Army, I can't break out of it, Colon Lopez. What he is the nation's senior ranking enlisted soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardsman, and he's the senior non-commissioned officer. So roughly speaking, we'll put it at 2.2, 2.3 million of us are in uniform somewhere in some capacity, active, guard, and reserve. And of that group, probably to the tune of 90% or so are enlisted. And CZ, as we dearly know him, he is an incredible example for 90% of our uniform service. So thanks, CZ, for being who you are and representing all that you do and all the soldiers you do. Last night, CZ had the distinguished honor, really, with me and the Commandant of the Marine Corps and the Vice CNO and the Secretary of the Navy and the DepSecDef of honoring the fallen Marines and sailor from tragic accident out in California. And that should serve as a reminder to all of us. Every single one of those that were killed was enlisted. And so, CZ, thank you for representing the vast, vast majority of the force that's in uniform defending our great country today. I want to say congratulations to all the nominees. Today we're going to start with Sergeant First Class Ashley Vega, who works for J5, Dave Alvin, right up here. She has been an impact player, for sure, in J5 for quite some time. Right now, she is the enlisted executive assistant to General Alvin, but she's also worked in many, many other capacities in Asia-Pacific Division as well within the J5. She has an incredible ability. She's a human resource specialist, and she has an incredible ability to streamline processes and keep the entire J5 section in terms of personnel management running on time, on target every time. And she's an exceptional example of a non-commissioned officer. It's a tough job being an executive assistant. It's a tough job being an executive assistant to General Alvin, I can tell you that. But it's a sorry, Dave. But it's a tough job being an EA, and she does it with exceptional skill. And I know from firsthand my own executive assistants and how hard they work. And for all of us that are flag officers on the Joint Staff, everyone has executive assistants, and they are the folks that make the Joint Staff run. They're the ones who make the general officers and admirals very effective. So, Sergeant First Class Vega, thank you for what you do. And she's also married to Sergeant First Class Vega, and the two of them, so two E7s, E14, I guess. So they might be outranking you, CZ. But thank you for what you're doing. He too is a human resources specialist working in the Army and has done great work in his own right. So thanks to both of you. They've got 3 children, great family, great Army family. So thanks to you, both of you, and thanks, Ashley, thanks Sergeant First Class Vega for being a great example and a great NCO to all of us. So thank you. And I'd also like to take a minute to highlight a truly great American, Mr. Lee Tate. Lee is right over here, and we'll have him up on stage in just a minute. He's out of J4, graduate of the United States Military Academy, born and raised in Virginia, went to high school here. Family dates back several hundred years, all the way to the beginnings of the American Republic. Has served multiple tours throughout his family history in the Revolution, the Civil War, and all the way up to today. Mr. Tate, as I said, graduated 2003 from the United States Military Academy at West Point. Was commissioned as an armor officer only because he didn't meet the standards of the infantry. And he had to go in armor. He's a tanker. He becomes a tank platoon leader, serves a combat tour in Iraq with the 1st Armored Division, and then gets out of the Army, does some great work in the commercial sector, and then came back to service, working in the Department of Defense as a specialist in contracting within the J4. He's worked the interagency process. He's helped some very significant accomplishments within the J4. And Lee, we want to thank you for everything that you've done on the Joint Staff, but also for not only your service, but your family's life service all the way back to the beginning of our country. The final awardee that we're going to acknowledge today is Beef Winters. He is I've known him for quite some time now. He happens to have been the book briefer, the SDA briefer, that briefed the Secretary of Defense frequently on orders that we produce. He's an exceptional Marine. He has done extraordinary work in J3 for quite a long time, and he's done all of the critical tasks that you know of that we see in the headlines over and over again. So whether it's Syria, Iran, over in Asia, Europe, it doesn't matter where it is, Colonel Winters has been deeply involved in that. And I would tell you that the Marines have recognized his excellence because he has been designated to take command of the Marine Air Control Group 38 in Miramar, California. So very shortly, he'll be heading out to, very shortly meaning next summer, he'll be heading out to San Diego to take 06 command in the Marine Corps at Miramar. So, Beef, thank you for what you've done. And before we do the formal awards here in just a minute, I do want to say a couple of words about you, the Joint Staff, us, and what we do. I think everyone knows on the Joint Staff that by law, the primary duty of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is to be members of the Joint Chiefs and to render best military advice to the President, the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council, the Homeland Security Council, and, frankly, also to Congress. And it's our job to do that every day, all the time, without fail. And it's advice, not command. What does the Joint Staff do? The Joint Staff really does that, all the analytical processing, all the coordination, all the synchronization, all of the staffing to make sure that General Hyten and I are capable of rendering that best military advice without any sort of emotion. It's all analysis, fact-based, and we can present options to the President and the Secretary of Defense on the employment of the military, no matter what the situation, whether it's humanitarian assistance or combat operations. That's a critical role. You, all of you, are unique in that you're the only staff that is wholly dedicated to doing that, to provide the analysis, the coordination, the synchronization, the integration, et cetera, of all of the U.S. military for two individuals to render that best military advice to the decision makers, the Secretary of Defense and the President. And I would tell you that is so key, not only today and in today's environment, but it's been key since the Joint Staff and the Chairman's position was first formed. And you do it, all of you, to a remarkable degree of excellence. So that is the key, the core, C-O-R-E job of what we do. And that's not well understood by a lot of people, but that is, in fact, what we do. The other thing that we do that's really key, I think, is to be an advocate for and an honest broker with the combatant commands, to represent the combatant commanders in the world of Washington, D.C. So in so many ways, we are their advocate. In so many ways, we represent them and what they do, and then in turn, we represent to them what the civilian leadership's instructions and orders and guidance and intent is. So we are the conduit of information between the combatant commanders and the civilian leadership and the principle of civilian control of the military. So we transmit the orders, the intent, and we transmit information back and forth and make sure that the military information from the combatant commands is appropriately represented here to the civilian leadership, and that the civilian information, the civilian intent, is appropriately represented to the combatant commanders. And the last thing we do that is critically important in my mind is we represent that 2.2, 2.3 million troops that are out there in uniform. This staff, the Joint Staff, is the senior military staff. It is called the Joint Staff. It's not a Joint Staff. It is the Joint Staff. And we are the senior military staff in the greatest and most powerful and most effective military in human history. And we are representing not only the combatant commands, we're representing everybody from a brand new trainee and recruit all the way up to the senior most officers out there that are in uniform. And those are heavy responsibilities. So what have you done over the course of, call it the last year or so? Well, first, you've almost been in continuous crisis action mode, really, from the day that General Dunford and I handed off to each other. A few days later, Turkey came across the border into Syria, and we stood up a crisis action team, and primarily led by J2, J3, but everybody in the Joint Staff contributed to that. You've coordinated and synchronized operations to take out a horrendous terrorist leader named Baghdadi. You had a significant strategic impact on the elimination of another leader of terror, General Soleimani. You have handled with extraordinary skill, in my mind, some very, very tense situations with Iran, and you presented information that was rational in courses of action and options, most of which cannot be said here on an open mic, but you've done that with extraordinary skill. Same thing in handling multiple situations with China and Russia, North Korea, and many others. You are managing with great skill the end of a war in Afghanistan, a responsible end of a war in Afghanistan that meets U.S. national security interests and provides for the future of that region. You have dealt with and have managed the drawdown of forces in Syria and are managing the drawdown of forces in Iraq without either one turning into an absolute catastrophe. Here at home, you have made a significant difference, in my mind, in the lives of American citizens in leading the effort, the military effort, to coordinate and synchronize and deliver humanitarian response in response to COVID-19 and the pandemic. And the key guy for us that's been doing that is the Vice Chairman, John Hyten. So a remarkable set of accomplishments. And then I would say that each of you have conducted yourselves extraordinarily professionally in rendering appropriate advice on the use of military force or the use of the National Guard or any other forces for domestic civil unrest. So that and much, much more is everything you've done. If you look at the J5, allies and partners around the world in advancing the strategic interests of the United States, you look at the J6 and all the work the J6 has done, everything from Huawei options to Legato options to all sorts of modernization efforts in the IT world. If you look at what the J7 has done, force management and design and development for a future force that won't exist perhaps for 10 or 15 years, the development of a joint warfighting concept and for the first time in our history, a JCS vision and guidance for the PME. The J1 world, all the talent management that we've done. The J8, legislative affairs, nurturing and working through some really complex issues for the budget. In short, and there's a lot more that you've all done. In short, I am unbelievably proud and very, very humbled to be the chairman of a staff that is far and away, it's not even a close call, the most effective and efficient and competent staff of any military staff, of any Army or Navy, Air Force, Marine in the world. The Joint Staff is incredible. You are, in fact, the best. You represent the top talent of all the services. Goldwater Nichols made sure of that back in the day. You didn't get to the Joint Staff by accident. You're hand-selected, hand-picked, and nominated by each of the services. You are the creme de la creme of the services, and you have a lot to be proud of. Every single issue you deal with is strategic in nature, and every single issue you deal with has incredible consequence for the safety and of the American people and the protection of that thing that we hold so dear, the U.S. Constitution. Let me close by just saying that every single day we're here, I would just ask a couple of things. One is that we always respect each other's dignity. We always treat each other with respect. We always create conditions by which every single one of us, no matter who you are, whether you're a man or a woman, or whether you're gay or you're straight or black or white or Catholic, Protestant, Asian, Indian, whether you're Muslim, Jew, rich, poor, doesn't matter, whether you're a private or a sergeant or whether you're a four-star general. You treat everybody with equal respect and dignity, and we provide an environment that creates opportunity for every single one of us to advance to the maximum level of our talents and our merit. And I would just ask you to do that. And by doing that, every single day, what are you doing? You are fulfilling the spirit and the idea of your oath, which is to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, which is an idea that says every one of us is born free and equal. And that's the core idea that it is to be an American. And each one of us has sworn that oath, and we're willing to die for it. So I just ask that you always remember that. Remember your oath, remember it every day, live it every day. And we can do that living it every day by dignity and respect to each other and creating an environment of equal opportunity so you can rise to the level of your merit. And you look at people's character, not just their physical characteristics, in determining their wealth, their merit, their talent. So thanks for what you're doing. You're an incredible staff, and I'm proud of every one of you. And we'll go ahead and do these awardees. Each of these awardees was handpicked and selected and nominated by the JDers. And although they're about to get a certificate, a medal, and a little trophy, each and every person on the Joint Staff could easily be standing here getting the same thing because every single one of you is extraordinarily talented. So thanks for what you're doing, and we'll go ahead and get started and get these guys up here and give them their award. Sergeant Major.
Thank you, General Milley. Ladies and gentlemen, General Milley will now recognize personnel representing each Joint Staff Directorate for all three categories. Directorate representatives receive a certificate of commendation from the chairman, and those selected as the enlisted member, civilian, and action officer of the year will receive a Joint Staff trophy and share the stage with General Milley for their remarks. We ask that the audience please remain seated for all presentations. We begin the presentations with Joint Staff enlisted member nominees. The first quarter nominee from Directorate of Operations, First Class Petty Officer Catherine S. Caldwell, United States Navy.
All right, Petty Officer. I can do that, right? You want one of these? You know that. Don't drop that. That's $2.95 on eBay. All right, there you go. Come on. See you tomorrow.
Unable to attend today, the third quarter nominee from the Directorate of Management, Technical Sergeant Matthew Burns, United States Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, from Directorate for Strategy, Plans and Policy, the 2019 Joint Staff Enlisted Service Member of the Year, Sergeant First Class Ashley J. Vega, United States Army. Citation to accompany the award of the Joint Service Commendation Medal to Ashley J. Vega. Staff Sergeant Ashley J. Vega, United States Army, distinguished herself by meritorious achievement as the 2019 Joint Staff Enlisted Service Member of the Year from 1 January 2019 to 31 December 2019. During this period, Staff Sergeant Vega served as the Human Resources Sergeant for Deputy Directorate for Politico-Military Affairs Asia, Enlisted Executive Assistant to the Director for Politico-Military Affairs Asia, and Enlisted Executive Assistant to the Director for Strategy Plans and Policy Directorate, J5, the Joint Staff. Upon her arrival to the position vacant for more than 12 months and without the benefit of having a turnover, Staff Sergeant Vega quickly identified areas that needed improvement and took charge. She created human resource processes and systems that eliminated redundancies and ensured timely processing. She quickly familiarized herself with the Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communications System account processes to ensure all service members had accounts within days of their arrival to the Directorate, thereby adding efficiency. Staff Sergeant Vega's initiatives led to her selection to serve as the Executive Enlisted Assistant to Director for Strategy, Plans, and Policy, where she flawlessly assumed duties while she continued to provide essential administrative support to Deputy Director for Politico-Military Affairs Asia. Furthermore, Staff Sergeant Vega's contributions to the J5 Directorate's mission, without a doubt, makes her deserving of the 2019 Joint Staff Enlisted Service Member of the Year. The distinctive accomplishments of the Staff Sergeant Vega reflect great credit upon herself, the United States Army, and the Joint Staff.
Just so you know, J5 should probably come to the office of the chairman.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend today's ceremony. Chairman, Sir, and SEAC, thank you for selecting me as the Joint Staff Enlisted Member of the Year. I really appreciate it. I'm extremely humbled by this recognition and truly honored to serve on the Joint Staff with the finest service members and civilians of the Joint Force. I owe this achievement to my husband and children for their support, to Lieutenant General Alvin for his mentorship, and the dedicated professionals of the J5 team for their guidance. Also, I want to congratulate Colonel Winters and Mr. Tate on their recognition. Congratulations, gentlemen. Once again, thank you everyone for the enthusiastic support and mentorship that led to this accomplishment.
Thank you, Sergeant First Class Vega. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now continue presentations with the Directorate nominees for the 2019 Joint Staff Civilian of the Year. From Manpower and Personnel Directorate, Ms. Deborah Lee. From the Directorate for Intelligence, Mr. John Kittle. From the Operations Directorate, Ms. Christina Kelly. From the Strategic Plans and Policy Directorate, Mr. Nicholas DeFury. From the Command, Control, Communications, and Computer Cyber Directorate, Mr. Robert Colombi. From the Joint Force Development Directorate, Mr. James Durdall. From the Force Structure, Resources, and Assessment Directorate, Dr. Margaret McCown. From the Directorate of Management, Ms. Denise G. And from the Office of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Ms. Christiane Marie Fauntlery-Witten. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 Joint Staff Civilian of the Year from the Directorate of Logistics, Mr. Lee R. Tate. Citation to accompany the award of the Joint Civilian Service Commendation Award to Mr. Lee Tate. Mr. Lee R. Tate distinguished himself by exceptionally meritorious achievement in actions that led to his selection as the Joint Staff Civilian of the Year while serving as an Operational Contract Support Analyst, Joint Staff Logistics Directorate, the Joint Staff, for a period of 1 January 2019 through 31 December 2019. As the chairman's subject matter expert on commercial support to operations, he increased the Defense Department's ability to implement the National Defense Strategy on multiple fronts. His efforts with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization directly resulted in improving processes and networks to prioritize combat support, strengthening the alliance, and supporting partnerships across both militaries and civilian agencies. His expertise in the field ensured the training of over 900 personnel on operational contract support, thus enhancing the lethality of our forces by increasing the ability to integrate mission-critical support. His professionalism and persuasiveness assured receipt of $1.65 million in additional funding, critical to fulfillment of Title X operational contract support responsibilities. His ability to work across the Defense Department, military services, combatant commands, federal agencies, and congressional staffs resulted in Senate approval of the Vendor Threat Mitigation Legislative Change Proposal for the National Defense Authorization Act. This initiative adds authorities for the government to avoid specific foreign contracting and preserve over $1 billion in contract and cooperative agreements. The distinctive accomplishments of Mr. Tate reflect great credit upon himself and the Joint Staff.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Chairman Siak, it's a true honor and privilege to be selected as the Civilian of the Year for the Joint Staff. I love the Joint Staff, and sir, thank you for explaining what the Joint Staff does. I've been on it for 11 years, and it's a really special mission. At the risk of using a dated movie reference, if the Bobs from Office Space came and asked me, so what is it exactly you would say that you do here? I would tell them that the joint force in any given operation is over 50% contractors, and so my team and I work every day to try and incorporate that reality into our training, education, exercises, doctrine, policy, planning, and risk assessments. And it's a fun mission, and my team and my colleagues are why I'm up here. I wouldn't be up here without them. And while I love my mission, they're my favorite part of this job. So thank you to my team and my colleagues. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now continue presentations with the Directorate nominees for the 2019 Joint Staff Action Officer of the Year. From the Directorate of Manpower and Personnel, Commander Christopher G. Brianas, United States Navy. From the Directorate for Intelligence, Major Aaron J. Danieli, United States Army. From the Joint Force Development Directorate, Major Lee C. Humphrey, United States Army. From the Directorate for Force Structure, Resources and Assessment, Lieutenant Colonel Eric M. Reagan, United States Air Force. And unable to attend today, from the Logistics Directorate, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey P. Anderson, United States Air Force. From the Directorate of Plans and Policy, from the Strategic Plans and Policy Directorate, Lieutenant Colonel Walter A. Reed, United States Army. From the Command, Control, Communications, and Computer Cyber Directorate, Lieutenant Colonel Makita R. Brown, United States Air Force. From the Directorate of Management, Colonel Christine A. Millard, United States Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 Joint Staff Action Officer of the Year from the Operations Directorate, Lieutenant Colonel Jeremy S. Winters, United States Marine Corps. Citation to accompany the award of the Joint Service Commendation Medal to Lieutenant Colonel Jeremy S. Winters, United States Marine Corps. Lieutenant Colonel Jeremy Winters, United States Marine Corps, distinguished himself by exceptionally meritorious achievement in actions that led to his selection as the Joint Staff Action Officer of the Year for 2019, while serving as the Deputy Division Chief, Joint Operations Division European Command, and Secretary of Defense Orders Book Briefer, Joint Operations Division Global Force Management, Deputy Directorate for Regional Operations and Force Management, Operations Directorate, the Joint Staff, from 01 January to 31 December 2019. Lieutenant Colonel Winters exhibited extraordinary leadership and subject matter expertise in spearheading crisis management teams and operational reviews in support of several national-level issues of specific significance. He presented a comprehensive Russian problem set, a coordinated summary of joint, national, and international review of plans and operations. This action set the standard for operational summaries and generated 3 additional reviews with direct impact on the national defense strategy. Additionally, he was key operations directorate leader in the critical crisis management team for the national plans and operations executed in response to the Turkish incursions into Syria. His briefs in both major areas were reviewed at the highest levels of the United States government and had a direct impact on national policy. The distinctive accomplishments of Lieutenant Colonel Winters reflect great credit upon himself, the United States Marine Corps, and the Joint Staff.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to accept this recognition and to join Sergeant Vega and my friend Lee Tate on the stage. I also want to give a shout out to my J3 folks, Wine1 Caldwell and Christina. Thank you so much for the teamwork down in the J3. These types of events aren't about the person on the stage. They're about the teams that did all those things that you heard in my citation, so I'd like to recognize those. I'd first like to thank both Chairmans Dunford and Milley, both of whom mentored me directly during this period of time on the Joint Staff. Chairman Milley, sir, especially as the SDOB team, those quiet moments in your office where you thought out loud and you actually asked the opinion of Napoleon's Lance Colonel, I really appreciate that, sir. The opportunity to serve alongside you is a privilege that I'll take with me forever. SEAC, thank you so much for everything that you do, whether it's mentoring young officers, looking after the force. It's tough to get out and about with the COVID going on, but we appreciate you and all the senior enlisted advisors taking care of our service members and their families out there. Thank you so much. To the Jaders, all of you, I appreciate the advice and the guidance and the mentorship I got from you, whether I wanted it or not or needed it or not. Specifically to Admiral Gilday and Lieutenant General Pappas. Those are two phenomenal leaders I had the privilege to work for, and every single day I'll take lessons from them. And Lieutenant General Alvin, sir, it was a privilege to work with you. Good luck in your next assignment, sir. The J-35, and now Major General D.A. Sims, who tomorrow takes command of the Big Red One. I hope to see that officer again in my career. I know all of us in the J-35 would take on the Chinese Army with a strategic disadvantage if D.A. Sims were our boss. So, sir, good luck. We're watching tomorrow. And to the J-35 team, the engine of the Joint Staff, everything that was read up on this stage, it came out in an order, it came out in a GFM task, it came out in an info paper that somebody downstairs in DDRO wrote. Thank you so much for what you do every single day. I love you guys. You're my family. And finally, to my family. My wife, Holly, has been dealing with breast cancer for my last year on the Joint Staff, and she's my rock. And without her, I would not have been able to do any of these things. She's cared for two my precious children, Samantha and Lucy, during this time, and she's my real hero. Today's a day where we talk about heroes. Those Marines and that one sailor that we will bury, those are heroes. And the families that take care of all the people who wear a uniform, who go forth and give everything they've got every single day and leave it all on the field, those are true heroes also. So I'm very appreciative to them as well. I believe I've been given the duty of dismissing the formation. Only a Marine would be given that with the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the stage. So ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our presentation. I would ask that you please rise for the departure of the official party.
Pete, you want to lead us down there? Marines lead the way.
This concludes today's ceremony. There will be a receiving line.